The first Chitex warrior recovered quickly from his surprise and swung two of his arms at Hana's head. She ducked under the blow and drove her elbow upward into his throat area. The armor there was thinner, designed to allow for breathing and flexibility. The warrior stumbled back, making a choking sound. The second warrior charged from behind. Hana heard the heavy footsteps and dropped flat to the ground. 400 pounds of armored alien sailed over her, crashing into the first warrior. They went down in a tangle of limbs and clicking mandibles. The third warrior, the smart one, circled carefully. His name was Zivan, though Hana did not know this. He had been studying human combat videos for weeks ever since rumors of this challenge began. He knew humans were weaker than Chitex. He knew their bones broke easier and their skin tore like paper, but he also knew they were fast and they thought differently than his people. Zivan feinted left, then came in from the right. Hana saw through the trick but pretended she did not. She started to move left, then reversed at the last second, throwing her whole body into a spinning kick. Her boot connected with Zivan's head, right where his primary eyes clustered. He reeled back, temporarily blinded. The first two warriors were back on their feet now. The one Hana had hit in the throat, whose name was Cratch, was angry. He came at her with all four arms swinging, no longer trying to be tactical, just trying to crush this small human who had dared to hurt him. Hana waited until he was committed to his charge, then stepped to the side like a matador avoiding a bull. As Cratch passed, she jumped onto his back, wrapping her legs around his thorax and her arm around his neck. She squeezed with all her strength, cutting off the flow of air to his breathing tubes. Cratch thrashed wildly, reaching back with all four arms to grab her. He caught her arm and pulled. Hana felt something tear in her shoulder, bright pain shooting through her body. She gritted her teeth and held on, squeezing harder. The second warrior, Norvex, grabbed Hana by the leg and yanked. She came loose from Cratch's back and hit the floor hard. The impact drove the air from her lungs. Norvex raised one of his massive feet to stomp on her. Hana rolled. The foot came down where her head had been a second before, cracking the metal floor. She kept rolling and came up in a crouch. Her left shoulder was screaming in pain, possibly dislocated. She ignored it. In the stands, Ambassador Taman was gripping the rail so hard his knuckles were white. Dr. Jiho Choi, the expedition's xenobiologist, sat next to him. She was watching the fight with intense focus, muttering medical observations under her breath. "Her left shoulder is damaged," Jiho said quietly. "She is compensating by shifting her weight to her right side. But look at her face, no fear. Her body is releasing adrenaline and endorphins. She is barely feeling the pain right now." "Can she win?" Taman asked. Jiho smiled. "Watch and learn about your own species, Ambassador." In the arena, all three warriors were circling Hana now, more cautious. They had expected this to be easy. A small human against three veteran Chitex fighters should have been over in seconds. But 30 seconds had passed and the human was still standing, still fighting, and she had hurt all three of them. Zivan's vision was clearing. He signaled to the others in the Chitex battle language, a series of mandible clicks too fast for the translators to follow. They began to coordinate, moving with military precision. Hana saw the change in their tactics. They were going to attack together from three sides at once, giving her no room to dodge. She needed to break their formation. She needed to take one of them out of the fight completely. She charged directly at Norvex, the warrior who had pulled her off Cratch's back. He was the biggest of the three, which meant he would be the slowest to react. Norvex spread his arms wide, ready to catch her. That was what she wanted. At the last second, Hana dropped into a slide going between his legs. As she passed under him, she reached up and grabbed the back of his leg joint, using her momentum to pull herself up behind him. Before he could turn, she jumped onto his back, this time positioning herself differently. She hooked her right arm under one of his arm joints and her legs around his waist. Then she leaned back with all her weight, pulling his arm back at an angle it was not designed to go. Chitex arms were strong, but their joints had weak points just like any other biological structure. Norvex screamed, a high-pitched sound that made several delegates in the stands cover their ears. Hana pulled harder. There was a crack and Norvex's arm went limp. She released him and dropped to the ground as he fell to his knees, clutching his broken limb. One down, two to go, but Hana was tiring. The adrenaline could only carry her so far. Her shoulder was worse than she thought. Every movement sent waves of pain through her body. She was breathing hard and she could feel bruises forming where Norvex had grabbed her leg. Cratch and Zivan came at her together. They had learned. They stayed close to each other, not giving her a chance to separate them or use one against the other. Hana backed up, her mind racing. She needed to change the dynamics of the fight. She needed them to make a mistake. She stumbled, deliberately making it look like her leg was giving out. Cratch took the bait and lunged forward. Hana dropped low and swept his legs using a technique from judo. Cratch went down hard. Zevin was already on her, though. Two of his arms locked around her waist, lifting her off the ground. He began to squeeze, trying to crush her ribs. Hana brought her elbow down on the top of his head again and again, targeting the cluster of sensory organs there. Zevin's grip loosened slightly. It was enough. Hana twisted in his grasp and brought her knee up into what passed for a Kaitek's face. Zevin dropped her and staggered back, greenish blood leaking from his mandibles. Cratch was getting up. Hana was running on pure determination now. Her vision was starting to blur at the edges. She could taste blood in her mouth. But she could not stop. Not now. She went after Zevin, the one who was already hurt. She had learned this principle in her first week of Special Forces training. Finish your enemies one at a time. Do not spread your attention. Zevin tried to defend himself, but he was concussed from the repeated blows to his head. Hana slipped past his guard and got behind him. She jumped onto his back one more time and wrapped her arm around his neck, just as she had done with Cratch. But this time she locked it in properly, using her other arm to apply pressure even through the pain in her shoulder. It was a rear naked choke, a technique from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that worked on almost any species with a similar circulatory system. Cut off the blood flow to the brain and consciousness would fade in seconds. Zevin struggled, but Hana held on like a vice. His movements became weaker. Finally, he tapped on her arm with one hand, the universal signal of submission. Hana released him and dropped to the ground. Zevin collapsed, gasping for air, 2 down. 1 to go. Cratch stood alone now, looking at his 2 defeated companions. He looked at the small human who was swaying on her feet, clearly injured and exhausted. Then he looked at the watching delegates, at Commander Rith, at Overseer Velthrax. He raised his arms in a combat stance and moved forward. Hana was so tired. Everything hurt. But she had come this far. She was not going to quit now. Cratch was being more careful now, having seen what happened to the others. He jabbed at her with his long arms, keeping his distance, trying to wear her down. Hana waited for her opening. She let him think he was winning, let him get confident. When he threw a particularly hard punch with his upper right arm, she moved inside his guard and grabbed the arm with both hands. Using Cratch's own momentum against him, she turned and threw him over her hip. The throw was perfect, a classic judo technique that sent the massive warrior flying through the air. He hit the ground with a crash that echoed through the chamber. Before he could recover, Hana was on him. She had no strength left for fancy techniques. She just started hitting him, targeting the weak points in his armor, the joints, the eyes, the breathing tubes. Every strike was precise, every movement focused. Cratch tried to defend, but he was on his back and Hana had position. In ground fighting, technique mattered more than size. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only seconds, Cratch went limp. Hana stood up slowly. The arena was silent. All 3 Chitex warriors were down. Norvex was clutching his broken arm. Zevin was still gasping for air. Cratch was unconscious. She walked over to Norvex first and offered him her hand. After a moment of surprise, he took it. She helped him to his feet. Then she did the same for Zevin. The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates were cheering. Others were arguing. Commander Rith stood frozen, his mandibles slack with shock. Overseer Velthrax was staring at Hana with an expression that might have been respect or might have been fear. Hana walked back to where Ambassador Taman stood. She picked up her jacket and her sidearm. Her legs were shaking and dark spots danced in her vision. "Permission to be dismissed, Ambassador," she said quietly. "I think I need to see the doctor." Then Captain Hana Park collapsed, and the last thing she saw before darkness took her was Taman's worried face and Dr. Choi rushing toward her with a medical kit. Hana woke up in the medical bay 6 hours later. The ceiling above her was white and clean, with soft lights that did not hurt her eyes. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest. "Easy," a familiar voice said. Dr. Jiho Choi appeared beside her bed, gently pushing her back down. "You dislocated your left shoulder, cracked 2 ribs, and your entire body is one giant bruise. You need rest." Did we win? Hana asked, her voice rough. Jiho smiled. You do not remember? You defeated all 3 Chitex warriors. The whole galaxy is talking about it. Around them, the medical bay was full of activity. Alien medical staff moved between beds, treating the injured Chitex warriors. Norvex's arm was in some kind of regenerative cast. Zivin was having his head examined with scanning equipment. Kratch was still unconscious but stable. An alien doctor, a tall being with crystalline features, approached Hana's bed. It spoke in a melodic voice, and the translation device rendered it as curious and respectful. Fascinating, the crystal doctor said, examining a holographic display of Hana's vital signs. Your body produces chemicals during stress that suppress pain and increase strength. This adrenaline and these endorphins, they are remarkable adaptations. All humans have them, Jiho explained. Our species evolved on a world where we were not the biggest or the strongest. We developed other advantages: endurance, the ability to keep fighting through injury, mental toughness. The crystal doctor looked at Jiho with what might have been surprise. All humans can do this? I thought Captain Park was exceptional among your kind. She is exceptional, Jiho said, but any trained human could have fought similarly. We have been perfecting ways to hurt each other for over 10,000 years. News of the fight had spread through the station like wildfire. Within hours, every species in the Galactic Council had seen the recordings. They watched in amazement as a small human defeated 3 armored warriors without any weapons. They saw her take damage that should have stopped her and keep fighting. They saw her show respect to her defeated enemies. In a conference room, 3 levels above the medical bay, Ambassador Taemin was in an emergency meeting with other human staff. Lieutenant Minseo Lee, their intelligence officer, was presenting data on a large holographic screen. The reaction has been intense, Minseo said. She was young for an intelligence officer, only 32, but she was brilliant at reading political situations. Some species are impressed, others are frightened. The Draknir Empire has requested all available information on human combat capabilities. What do we tell them? Asked one of the other diplomats. Taemin leaned back in his chair. We tell them the truth. That might be our only option now. Minseo pulled up video files. They showed humans throughout history engaging in combat. Ancient warriors with swords and spears, medieval knights in armor, martial artists in white uniforms practicing kata, modern soldiers training in hand-to-hand combat. I have been compiling this for weeks, Minseo said. Just in case. The database contains over 5,000 distinct human fighting systems, developed across every continent and culture on Earth. Wrestling, boxing, karate, taekwondo, kung fu, muay thai, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, krav maga, sambo, and those are just the ones with formal names. The room was silent as they watched humans flip, kick, punch, and grapple in 100 different styles. We need to present this to the council, Taemin said finally. They need to understand what they saw today was not unusual for us. It was just a human doing what humans do. The emergency council session was called for that evening. The chamber was more crowded than it had been in years. Every delegate wanted to be present. The holographic recorders were positioned to broadcast the proceedings to hundreds of worlds. Overseer Velthrax opened the session. His golden eyes swept across the assembled delegates before settling on the human section. We have all seen the combat earlier today, he said. Captain Park's performance was extraordinary, but it raises questions that must be answered before we vote on humanity's application to the Defense Force. Counselor Therask, an elderly windrider with silver feathers, stood up. Her species was known for wisdom and long memory. I have a question for the human delegation, Therask said, her voice gentle but firm. Your Captain Park defeated 3 Chitex warriors with her bare hands. She showed skills I have never seen in any species. Is she the best humanity has to offer? Or is this ability common among your people? Taemin stood. Counselor Therask, Captain Park is an excellent fighter. She spent 8 years in our special forces and has trained in multiple combat systems since childhood. But she is not unique. Earth has millions of people with similar training. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Millions. Minseo stepped forward and activated the holographic display. Videos began to play, showing human combat throughout history. These are historical records, Minseo explained. Humans have been developing fighting systems for our entire recorded history. We did not have natural weapons like claws or armor like shells. We did not have venom or great size. So we learned to use our bodies as weapons. The delegates watched in fascination and growing concern as the video showed humans in combat. They saw boxing matches where fighters took incredible punishment and kept fighting. They saw martial artists breaking boards and bricks with their bare hands. They saw soldiers training to fight in every environment and situation imaginable. But why? Thrask asked. Why did you develop so many ways to fight? Taman took a breath. Because we fought each other, constantly. Humanity's greatest shame is that we spent most of our history at war with ourselves. Every culture, every nation, developed its own fighting methods. We had to because the alternative was extinction. Veltrax leaned forward. And the weapons? The guns and bombs that Commander Reith mentioned? We invented them because we were too good at killing each other without them, Taman said quietly. Firearms were supposed to make war less personal, less brutal. They did not. They just made war more efficient. The crystal doctor from the medical bay appeared on a communication screen. I have completed my examination of the human physiology, the doctor said. With permission, I would like to share my findings. Veltrax nodded. The doctor displayed medical scans. Humans are persistence hunters. Their bodies are designed for endurance. They can regulate temperature through sweating, allowing them to run for hours without overheating. Their pain response can be suppressed by natural chemicals. Their bones are dense and their joints flexible. They heal quickly from most injuries. And their brains are wired for pattern recognition and tactical thinking. Another delegate spoke up, a representative from the Obsidian Collective. Are you saying humans are biologically designed for combat? Not exactly, the crystal doctor said. They are designed for survival in a hostile environment. But those same adaptations make them formidable warriors. Commander Reith, who had been silent since the fight, finally stood up. His mandibles clicked slowly as he processed what he had learned. I was wrong, he said simply. I thought humans relied on guns because they were weak. Now I understand. Humans rely on guns because they are too dangerous without them. The chamber fell silent at that. It was a profound shift in perspective, and everyone felt it. Thrask spoke again. I propose we take a recess. We all need time to consider what we have learned today. The vote on humanity's application should not be rushed. Veltrax agreed, and the session was adjourned. That night, something unexpected happened. Commander Reith appeared at the door to Hana's quarters. She was out of the medical bay but still moving carefully, her shoulder in a support brace. Commander, she said, surprised. Can I help you? Rith's mandibles moved in what Hana had learned was embarrassment. I came to apologize and to ask a question. I am listening. Would you teach me? Rith asked. I have fought in 30 battles across 10 worlds. I thought I knew combat. But what you showed today was something different. It was not just about strength or speed. It was about knowing how bodies work, how to use leverage and position and timing. I want to learn the human way of fighting. Hana looked at the massive alien warrior who had called her people weak just hours ago. She saw genuine respect in his eyes now. Genuine curiosity. She smiled. Tomorrow morning, if the doctor clears me. Wear something comfortable. The first lesson is learning how to fall without getting hurt. Rith's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. I think I learned that lesson already today, watching you throw Cratch. After Rith left, Hana sat on her bed and looked out the viewing port at the stars. She thought about Earth, about all the people there who trained every day in gyms and dojos. People who would never fight in a war but who kept the old traditions alive. Boxers and wrestlers and martial artists who pushed their bodies to the limit, not because they had to, but because it was part of being human. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was the refusal to give up. The ability to take punishment and keep moving forward. The knowledge earned through thousands of years of conflict that fighting was not about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about being the one still standing when everything else fell down. And humans were very good at staying standing. Lieutenant Minseo Lee did not sleep much. It was a habit from her intelligence training, where threats could emerge at any hour and missing them could cost lives. So when she found the anomaly in the station's communication logs at 3 a.m, she was wide awake and sharp. Someone had been sending encrypted messages off station, messages that did not go through the normal diplomatic channels. Messages that had been carefully hidden in the background noise of regular station traffic. Minseo pulled the data up on her screen and started tracing the source. The encryption was good, but not good enough. She had broken military-grade codes before. This was harder, but not impossible. 3 hours later, she had a partial decode. What she read made her blood run cold. The vote is in 2 days, the message read. The human delegation must not survive to see it. Prepare the charges. Make it look like an accident. Minseo immediately contacted Ambassador Taemin. He arrived at her office within minutes, his silver hair disheveled from sleep. Are you certain? He asked, reading the decoded message. Certain enough that we need to take precautions, Minseo said. Someone on this station wants us dead, and they have access to explosives. Taemin sat down heavily. Do we know who sent this? Not yet. The origin point is scrambled through multiple relay points, but I am working on it. Minseo pulled up a station schematic. I recommend we move the delegation to a secure location immediately. No, Taemin said after a moment of thought. If we run, it shows weakness, and it might push whoever this is to act immediately rather than waiting. We need to find them first. Then we need help, Minseo said. They contacted Hana. Despite her injuries, she was in Minseo's office within 15 minutes. She listened to the briefing with a grim expression. This is not random, Hana said. Someone is scared of what we represent. Scared enough to kill. The question is who, Taemin said. We have made allies in the council. Councillor Tharask speaks well of us. Even Commander Reith has changed his stance. But we have also made enemies. Over the next day, Minseo worked her intelligence network. She had contacts among the station staff, people who owed her favors or who she had helped with small problems. Information began to flow. A maintenance worker reported seeing armed beings in the abandoned sections of the station. A kitchen staff member mentioned overhearing a conversation about removing the human problem. A security guard noticed shipments of materials that did not match the official manifests. The pattern emerged slowly. The conspiracy was centered around a group called the Obsidian Collective, a radical faction that believed in keeping the galaxy's power structure exactly as it was. They saw humanity as a threat to the established order. Their leader was a being named Zorvan, a member of a species that thrived on stability and feared change. His people had held positions of economic power for generations, and the idea of a new species rising to prominence terrified them. Hana took the information to Commander Rith. She found him in one of the station's training rooms, practicing the falling techniques she had shown him the day before. He was surprisingly dedicated for someone who had been her enemy just 48 hours earlier. Commander, I need your help, Hana said. Rith stood up, his exoskeleton slightly scuffed from the training. What do you need? She explained the situation. The conspiracy. The planned attack. The vote that was now just 24 hours away. Rith's mandibles clicked in anger. This Zorvan dishonors the council. He dishonors the principle of fair debate. I will help you stop him. It could be dangerous, Hana warned. Good, Rith said. I am a warrior. Dangerous is what I do. They were joined by an unexpected ally. A human Hana had never seen before appeared at her quarters that evening. He was thin and unremarkable looking, with dark hair and quiet eyes. He introduced himself as Kyung Bae. I work in station maintenance, Kyung said. At least that is what my identification says. Hana studied him carefully. But that is not what you really do. No, Kyung admitted. I am deep cover intelligence. I have been on this station for 2 years, watching and listening. And right now, I am hearing things that worry me very much. He had infiltrated the outer circles of the Obsidian Collective months ago, suspecting they might cause trouble. Now he had confirmation. Zorvan was planning to detonate explosives in both the human quarters and the council chamber during the vote. The death toll would be massive, and it would be blamed on human weapons malfunctioning. He has 12 operatives, Kyung explained, spreading a holographic map on the table. 6 planting explosives, 6 providing security and distraction. They are using the abandoned industrial sector in the lower levels as their base. Counselor Tharask joined them after Hana sent her an encrypted message. The old Windrider listened to everything with sharp attention. This goes beyond politics, Tharask said. This is terrorism. If Zorvan succeeds, it will start a chain reaction of violence and suspicion that could tear the council apart. We need to stop him, Hana said, but we cannot do it publicly. If we accuse him without proof, it becomes a diplomatic disaster. And if we involve station security, his people might have time to detonate the charges remotely. So we do it quietly, Ryth said. A small team, fast and efficient. They planned through the night. Hana, Rith, Minseo, and Kyung would form the core team. Tharask would stay in the diplomatic area, ready to act if things went wrong. Overseer Velthrax was informed privately and agreed to keep the vote on schedule, acting as if nothing was wrong. The Draknir leader had been thinking deeply about humanity since the fight. He had watched the videos of human combat, studied the reports from the medical bay, and he had come to a conclusion that surprised him. I was wrong about your people, Velthrax told Taemin in a private meeting. I thought you were soft because you looked fragile. But I see now that strength comes in many forms. I will support your application to the Defense Force if you survive the next 24 hours. Your confidence is inspiring, Taemin said dryly. I am being realistic, Velthrax replied. Zorvan is desperate. Desperate beings are dangerous. The team moved out at dawn, station time. The abandoned industrial sector was a maze of old corridors and machinery from when the station was first built. Lights flickered or did not work at all. The air smelled of rust and old lubricants. Kyung led them through the passages he had mapped during his infiltration. They moved quietly, using hand signals Hana had taught them. Rith was surprisingly stealthy for his size, his training as a warrior showing through. They found the first guard in a corridor junction. Hana took him down silently, using a chokehold that left him unconscious but alive. They tied him up and continued. The second and third guards went down just as easily, but the fourth was more alert. He saw them coming and raised an alarm, a high-pitched wail that echoed through the corridors. So much for stealth, Minseo muttered, drawing her sidearm. Adapt and overcome, Hana said, and they started running. Zorvan's base was a large chamber that had once been a cargo processing center. The team burst through the door to find chaos. Operatives were scrambling to arm themselves and protect the explosives they had been assembling. The fight was brief but intense. Rith proved his worth, his forearms and armored body making him a formidable opponent. Minseo fought with precision, her military training evident in every movement. Kyung moved like a shadow, appearing behind enemies and disabling them before they could react. And Hana, despite her still healing injuries, fought with controlled fury. She had learned something important in her years of combat. Fighting angry made you sloppy. Fighting with purpose made you unstoppable. They cleared the room in less than 2 minutes. The operatives were down, the explosives secured, but Zorvan himself was not there. He is in the station's main power junction, Kyung said, checking a data pad he had taken from one of the operatives. He has a backup plan. If the explosives fail, he is going to overload the power core. It will destroy half the station. They ran. The power junction was 3 levels up, accessed through maintenance shafts that were barely wide enough for Rith to squeeze through. They could hear Zorvan ahead of them, his footsteps echoing in the metal corridors. They burst into the power junction to find Zorvan at the main control panel. He was a tall being with crystalline features similar to the doctor who had examined Hana, but darker, like obsidian glass. Stay back, Zorvan said, his hands on the controls. One more step and I overload the core. Hana raised her hands. You do not want to do this. Thousands will die, your own people included. Better thousands die now than billions suffer later, Zorvan said. Humans are a plague. You will spread through the galaxy, bringing your violence and your chaos. I will not allow it. You are wrong about us, Hana said, taking a slow step forward. Yes, we know violence. We have fought and killed throughout our history, but we have also learned from it. We have learned when to fight and when to show mercy. We have learned that strength is not just about destruction. Lies, Zorvan spat. I saw what you did to those Chitex warriors. I saw the damage you inflicted. And I saw her help them to their feet afterward, Ryth said, speaking up. I saw her show respect to defeated enemies. That is not the action of someone who loves violence. That is the action of a warrior who understands its cost. Zorvan hesitated. In that moment of uncertainty, Kyung moved. He was fast, faster than anyone expected. He crossed the distance to Zorvan in a heartbeat and knocked his hands away from the controls. The struggle was brief. Zorvan fought, but Kyung was trained for exactly this kind of situation. Within seconds, Zorvan was on the ground restrained, but there was a problem. During the struggle, something had been activated. The power core was building toward overload, not immediately, but in a few minutes it would reach critical levels. I can stop it, Kyung said, looking at the controls. But I will need to do it manually. Someone needs to stay here and shut down the safety systems from inside the core chamber. It will be flooded with radiation, fatal levels. Then we find another way, Hana said immediately. There is no other way, Kyung replied calmly. And there is no time to evacuate the station. This is the only option. He looked at each of them and smiled. Besides, this is what I signed up for. Protecting people. This is just protecting more people than usual. Before anyone could stop him, Kyung entered the core chamber and sealed the door behind him. They watched through the reinforced window as he worked the controls, his movements calm and methodical even as the radiation counters climbed into lethal ranges. 3 minutes later, the power core stabilized. The overload was stopped. But Kyung did not come out of the chamber. He sat down against the wall, his job complete, and gave them a thumbs up through the window. Then he closed his eyes. Hana pressed her hand against the glass, tears streaming down her face. Rith bowed his head in respect. Minseo whispered a prayer in Korean. They had won. The conspiracy was stopped. The station was saved. But the victory tasted like ashes. The council chamber was silent as Ambassador Taemin stood before the assembled delegates. It had been 12 hours since Kyung-bae's sacrifice. 12 hours since they had stopped Zorvan's plan to destroy the station. The vote on humanity's application to the Defense Force was about to begin. But first, there was something Taemin needed to say. Councilors, delegates, honored representatives, he began, his voice steady despite the grief he felt. Before we vote today, you need to know what happened last night. You need to know what one human did to save all of you. The holographic displays activated, showing the recordings from the power junction. The delegates watched in stunned silence as the events unfolded. They saw the fight in Zorvan's base. They saw the confrontation at the power core. And they saw Kyung-bae walk into lethal radiation to save the station. When the recording ended, the chamber remained quiet. Finally, Overseer Velthrak spoke. I knew there was a security situation, he said, but I did not know the full extent. This human Kyung-bae, he saved thousands of lives, including mine. Councillor Tharask stood, her silver feathers catching the light. I move that Kyung-bae be honored posthumously by this council. His actions represent the highest ideals of service and sacrifice. The motion passed unanimously. Taemin bowed his head in gratitude. Kyung would have been honored. He believed in what we are trying to build here. A galaxy where different species can work together, protect each other, and stand against those who would tear us apart. Zorvan was brought into the chamber in restraints. He looked diminished now, his crystalline features dull and lifeless. His conspiracy had been exposed. His operatives were in custody. His attempt to destroy the station had failed. Zorvan of the Obsidian Collective, Velthrak said formally, you stand accused of terrorism, attempted murder, and conspiracy against the Galactic Council. How do you answer these charges? Zorvan said nothing. You were afraid of humans, Velthrax continued, afraid of what they might do. So you decided to kill them, to start a war, and in doing so you proved exactly what you claimed to fear. You became the monster. Zorvan was led away. His fate would be decided later, but it was clear he would spend the rest of his life in confinement. The vote proceeded. One by one, the delegates cast their decisions. The tally appeared on the holographic displays for all to see, in favor of humanity joining the collective defense force. Unanimous. The chamber erupted in a sound like thunder. Delegates were cheering, clicking, chirping, and making whatever noises their species used for approval. Even Commander Rith was on his feet, his mandibles spread in what Hana now recognized as a genuine smile. Taemin felt tears in his eyes. They had done it. After years of negotiation, after the challenge in the arena, after nearly dying in a terrorist attack, humanity had earned its place among the stars, but the vote was just the beginning. 3 months later, Station Kepler 9 had changed. The abandoned industrial sector where Zorvin had hidden his conspiracy was now a memorial garden, with Kyung Bae's name inscribed in stone in 17 different languages and writing systems. A new facility had been built in the station's training area. It was called the Human Combat Institute. Those species from across the galaxy were welcome to attend. Hana Park ran it, her official title now Defense Force Instructor rather than Captain. On this particular morning, she stood in the main training hall watching her new students file in. There were Kitex warriors, including Rith, who had proven to be her most dedicated student. There were Windriders learning how their natural agility could be combined with human grappling techniques. There were Draknir soldiers discovering that their size could be a disadvantage against a smaller, faster opponent who knew how to use leverage, and there were humans. Young soldiers from Earth who had volunteered to serve in the Defense Force, learning how to fight alongside alien species and adapt their techniques to different body types and abilities. Lieutenant Minseo Lee worked as Hana's second-in-command. She taught intelligence gathering and tactical planning, showing the alien students how humans approached warfare from a strategic perspective. Ambassador Taman had established a permanent embassy on the station. Relations with the Galactic Council were stronger than ever. Several species had approached humanity about forming military alliances and training partnerships. General Sora Yun, who commanded Earth's defensive fleet, visited the station regularly to coordinate with her alien counterparts. She was a stern woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. But she had been pleased with how the integration was proceeding. "You have done good work here, Instructor Park," Sora said during one of her visits. "These aliens respect you. More than that, they want to learn from you." "They want to learn from humanity," Hana corrected. "I am just the one teaching them." In the training hall, a new class was beginning. These were fresh recruits from multiple species. Most of them had never trained in human combat styles before. They looked at Hana with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. One of them, a young Windrider named Seraph, raised a wing hesitantly. "Instructor Park, I have a question." "Ask. Is it true what they say? That humans can fight without weapons? That you defeated 3 Chitex warriors with just your hands?" The question hung in the air. Hana could see the other students leaning forward, waiting for her answer. Some of them had seen the recordings. Some had only heard stories. All of them wanted to know if it was real. Hana smiled. She had answered this question once before, in this very chamber, when Commander Rith had challenged humanity's worth. She had answered it with action, with 4 minutes of brutal combat that had left her injured but victorious. Now she would answer it differently. "Come here," she said to Seraph. The Windrider approached nervously. Hana gestured for him to stand in a ready position. "Attack me," Hana said. "I do not want to hurt you, Instructor. You will not. Attack me." Seraph lunged forward with his wing claws extended. Hana sidestepped smoothly, caught his arm and used his own momentum to guide him into a controlled fall. Seraph hit the mat gently, surprised but unhurt. Hana helped him up. "Yes, humans can fight without weapons. But that is not the important lesson." She looked around at all the students. "The important lesson is why we fight. Not because we love violence. Not because we want to hurt others. We fight to protect. We fight to survive. And we fight to give peace a chance." Rith stood up from where he had been observing. "The instructor speaks truth. I learned this the hard way. I thought humans were weak because they looked fragile. I learned that strength is not about size or armor. It is about determination. About refusing to give up even when you should be beaten." Another student, a Draknir named Vex, spoke up. "But how do we learn this? How do we learn to fight like humans?" "You already know how to fight like your own species," Hana said. "What I will teach you is how to fight smarter, how to use what you have more effectively, how to understand combat not just as physical action but as problem-solving." She gestured to the mats. "We will start with the basics. How to fall without injury. How to read your opponent's movements, how to stay calm under pressure. These principles work for any species, any body type." The class began. Hana moved among the students, correcting stances and demonstrating techniques. She showed the Chitex how to protect their joint weaknesses while using their strength effectively. She taught the Windriders how to use their speed without compromising their balance. She worked with the Draknir on channeling their power through proper technique rather than just relying on mass. And she smiled. Because this was exactly what she had hoped for when she stepped into that arena 3 months ago. Not just to prove humanity's worth, but to build bridges between species, to share knowledge that could save lives and prevent wars. During a break, Rith approached her. "I have news," he said. "The Chai-Tech's Military Council has requested a full training program. They want to send warriors here to learn from you." "That is excellent," Hana said. "There is more. They asked me to propose something. They want to create combined units. Humans and Chai-Techs fighting together using both our species' strengths." Hana considered this. It was exactly the kind of integration the Defense Force needed. Different species working together, complementing each other's abilities. "I think that is a wonderful idea," she said. "We will need to develop new tactical doctrines, new communication protocols. It will be challenging." "Good," Reith said, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "Challenging is what makes us stronger." That evening, Hana stood in the memorial garden looking at Kyungbei's name on the stone. Other names had been added in the months since, warriors from different species who had died in service to the Defense Force. It was a reminder that peace was not free. It required sacrifice. Ambassador Taemin found her there. "You are thinking about him," he said. "Always," Hana replied. "He saved all of us, and most people will never know his name." "The ones who matter know," Taemin said. "And his example lives on in what you are building here." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars through the station's viewing ports. "Do you ever regret it?" Taemin asked. "Accepting Rith's challenge? You could have died that day." Hana thought about it. She thought about the pain, the fear, the uncertainty. She thought about the hard path that had followed, the conspiracy and the loss. But she also thought about the students in her training hall, about the bridges being built between species, about a galaxy that was learning that strength came in many forms and that differences could be strengths rather than weaknesses. "No," she said finally. "I do not regret it. Someone had to answer the question. Someone had to show them what humans are capable of. Not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we refuse to give up. Because we keep fighting for what we believe in." She turned to face Taemin. "Besides, it is not about me anymore. It is about what comes next. The next generation of warriors who will protect this galaxy, human and alien fighting side by side." In the training hall, the class was resuming. Students from a dozen different worlds were learning to trust each other, to fight together, to become something greater than any single species could be alone. And in a small room off the main hall, new recruits were arriving. Fresh faces, both human and alien, all asking the same questions. Can humans really fight without weapons? Are the stories true? What makes them so dangerous? Hana would answer those questions the same way she always had. Not with words, but with action. Not with boasts, but with demonstration. Not by making humanity seem invincible, but by showing that strength was about more than just physical power. It was about heart. About determination. About the refusal to quit even when the odds seemed impossible. It was about looking at 3 armored warriors twice your size and deciding that you would win anyway. It was about walking into a radiation chamber to save strangers from species you had never met before. It was about standing up when everyone expected you to stay down. That was the real answer to the question. That was what made humanity worthy of a place among the stars. Not their weapons, not their technology, not even their diverse fighting styles. It was their spirit. And as Hana watched her students train, human and alien learning from each other and growing stronger together, she knew that Kyungbei's sacrifice had not been in vain. They had asked if humans could fight without guns. She had answered before they hit the floor, and the galaxy would never forget.